Hey everybody, and welcome to Epic Everyday, our weekday podcast for busy Christians who are feeling overwhelmed and stressed and want to move out of that overwhelm and stress and into freedom and abundance and peace. I'm Liz Frericks, and this is my husband, Evan.
Good morning.
And yay, it's Monday.
That's right. Time to get your opportunity socks on and pull them all the way up.
Exactly.
Is that what we do? Is that why you like Mondays?
Yes.
Yeah.
Opportunity socks. Because
Yeah.
you know what a big sock person I am.
Uh-huh. That was sarcasm.
Yes, very much so. Anyway, socks aside, we are working our way through the CSCs. The CSCs are being calm, surrendered, centered, connected, and complete. And last week we spent the whole week talking about being centered. So this week we are going to spend the whole week talking about being connected.
That's right. And today we're going to talk about one of the big barriers, I think, in Christian culture, at least in the West, and especially in America, is this idea of rugged individualism. That's the American, one of the big American values. And that actually gets in the way of the CSCs quite a bit.
Yes. It's hard to connect with anyone when you are so firmly rooted in, this is who I am. I must do everything by myself. I must pull myself up by my own bootstraps.
Yeah, me versus the world. Nobody's going to give me anything. I mean, I wrote down, there's some great things about the American dream and the American success story, and then there's some things that get in the way of our spiritual success.
Right, yeah. I think there's a huge fear that comes with that rugged individualism of losing yourself to a group, of kind of having your identity subverted in the group's identity. But at the same time, we're designed to live in community, so we're constantly fighting between those two desires. We want to be individuals, but we want to be part of a group, Yeah. We want to stand out and fit in at the same time.
One of the big things about being an American, there's lots of room for individual gumption, and that can lead you to success. Like the things that you take the initiative on, the things that you do. I don't know how many success stories I've heard where the person was like, I set my sights on something and I went and got it. I just dedicated my whole life to that thing. But a big part of the thing of their success that kind of almost goes unnoticed is I attached myself to someone who's already doing that, or a mentor, or I had to learn from somebody along the way. And that's the connected part. But I think we focus more on the I went out and wrestled that bull to the ground and I did what I wanted, where we may not see the connections along the way that are the lifeblood of any success story.
Right.
And none of it doesn't happen in a vacuum, not even in America.
Yeah, this past weekend we spent at our family camp for our church, and the speaker, Rick Burke, was talking about being with someone, how the disciples were with Jesus, and that's they got on-the-job training, and that as we are with other people, we grow and we change and we learn. And we need that mentorship in order to move forward.
A big part of his story that I loved was that he said yes to some opportunities that were uncomfortable. Like for one, he walked away from his family business, he said. But then he ended up going around the world as a missionary. And he said, I didn't know how to be a missionary. And then there was different situations. I didn't know how to do this. I didn't know how to do that. But I was with someone who did. And he's like, I didn't get my college degree in being a missionary or anything like that. I just went out with this missionary and I couldn't do anything. And then because of watching him and working alongside him, I was able to do these things.
Right. Yeah, that was really cool.
So it was an interesting dynamic with the American dream of because in a way it's right. That guy, he's the guy who said yes. He's the guy who took the risk and walked away from some security and into this the great unknown. So in a sense, it's well, way to go, you get a round of applause. But then it also he left a group or a situation and entered into another situation where there's still people there and still things to learn.
I think we kind of forget that. Like you're saying, we forget the people that we end up learning from.
Yeah, I don't know. Think of if you watch the documentary about maybe an actor or something you're like, oh, here's this accomplishment they did, and they did that, and they did that. But behind everything, like if they went to a school, there was a teacher there, or if they got to work under a great director, there's that guy there. It's
Right.
not just them plowing through obstacles all by
Yeah, nobody's
themselves.
living in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I think American individualism kind of forces us in a place where we have a hard time accepting help. But when you look at those success stories, they're the people that did accept
Yeah.
help, that did take, kind of take full advantage of the opportunity that having that relationship presented them with.
Yeah, and I think we get ourselves in a bind when we want to sit back and wait for success to come to us, or in the Christian idea of success, even to be good at evangelism or to be an effective part of your church or a good leader. It just doesn't happen to you if you wait around long enough.
Right.
These things that
Well,
we're
yeah, like
talking
we were
about.
talking about on Friday, if you don't deal with the stuff in your life now, it's still going to be there 5 years from now. If you don't decide now that you are going to change this area of your life and start working on it, we talk a lot about 1% improvement. You do not need to change 80 million things all at once in your life, but you have to change something. And if you kind of start that ball rolling, it's so much easier to keep growing, to keep, what if you become a learner and you learn in this area, it's easy to
Oh,
take
sure.
those skills and learn this other skill.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would challenge you, if you get a little jealous or envious of somebody else's success and you actually get to hear their story, look for the parts where they were dependent on someone or mentored by someone or connected to someone, because it's there. If you're familiar with YouTube, there's a guy on there who I think got famous because of this ad that he ran. It was a pre-roll, so it would be one of those ads that you could skip before a video. And his name is Tai Lopez. Did you see him? He
I
was the
don't
guy
know.
who was like, I'm standing here in my garage next to my Lamborghini, but you know what I like more than Lamborghinis? And he panned over and it was a bookcase full of books. Did you ever see that
No,
commercial?
I didn't.
Really?
Nope.
It was everywhere. Maybe, I don't know, not that long ago, months ago, maybe last year. But somebody was interviewing him, and like I guess even before he did that, he was an entrepreneur. Like he'd started businesses, and and that's kind of we like to read some people like that who have tried things, and they don't always work, but whatever. He's
Yeah.
one of those kind of guys, and I think the thing he's selling through that ad is his kind of he's got 67 steps or something, so he's got this whole thing that he's selling, but that commercial became a meme. And some guys were goofing on it.
Ah.
It's like, oh, I'm standing here next to my Lamborghini, but you know what I really like is books. And it's like, yeah, right, dude, you like your Lamborghini. But he kind of embraced the meme. But he was getting interviewed. And one thing he said that has a lot to do with this was like in the interview, it's like he'd get asked a question and he'd say, well, so-and-so says, and he'd quote a book that he read because he really has read thousands of books. And so every question that he'd answer was, even in the comments, the podcast he was getting interviewed on was H3h3, which is not family friendly, that's for sure. So if you're going to check it out, beware of that. But is really interesting, and so in the comments they're like, "Geez, Ethan, who is the guy who hosts the show, asked a question." And Ty says, "Well, according to so and so," like it's none of his own answers, but that's just his entire thing was like, the thing I'm trying to get to is this, like his most practical step to success was, he said, you just get a hold of the people that you want to be like. And if you cold
Yeah.
call or cold email 10 people, one guy will probably respond. And then you go meet that guy and learn everything you can from him. He had
That's
this
awesome.
crazy story. He flew somewhere, I don't know, South America or somewhere crazy in the world, and he met this guy, and then the guy ended up being kind of weird, and he wanted to get the heck out of there, but he did it, And then he did that with a bunch of other people too. Like he'd reached out to probably thousands of people and got to meet maybe hundreds of them,
Wow.
and learn something from each person. And that, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I think the barrier for me is the try it part, and to not stop once you don't get a response or you get turned down a couple of times.
Right.
But
Yeah, and we're actually going to talk about that like fear of rejection later this week.
yeah, but I just thought that was a cool story. But so there's an American success story, like Tai Lopez, successful. He's rich now. He's YouTube famous. He's a living meme, and yet he couldn't have done it if he hadn't have reached out to and met this guy read a book I like. I'm going to try to meet him. And one time out of 10, he gets to actually meet the guy,
Yeah. Yeah, that is really interesting. Just seeing those connections, even, who is it that said that you will be the same person in a year except for the people that you meet and the books that you read? And a lot of the time, I think it is the information in the books, but a lot of it is just that connection with the author. Because as an author myself, I know that when I'm writing a book, I am trying to connect to my audience. I'm pouring my life's blood into this,
Well, and I think we tend to lose the sight of even so in the Christian community, if you really like Ravi Zacharias or Billy Graham or who's Billy Graham's kid? Franklin Graham. These people or Tim Keller or somebody, you're like, oh boy, you might be able to email them and get a response, or go to Tim Keller's church in New York if you're in town, probably. These are just people being obedient to God, and God's doing things through them.
Right.
And they're discipling people. They would be more than happy to have more people doing what they're doing. It's not like they're like, oh, I'm precious about this. I'm the only person who can preach like I preach because it's my thing. It's like, no, this is the gospel. Let's get it out there.
Right.
So even more, like the Tai Lopez thing was totally secular. In the Christian community, this should be even better, a better success rate, you'd think.
You would think.
You would hope. But the fact is, keep trying.
Right. Definitely. And the more we can reach out to people, even just the people in our regular lives, not necessarily authors or people that are famous or anything, but just the people in our regular lives. If you find somebody at church that you admire something about them, ask them how they got there.
Sure.
That was one of the things recently. One of my mentors passed away from high school, and that's how I got into a relationship with her, was just going, you're somebody that I've seen these character qualities in you, and I really respect it, and I'm interested in learning more.
So you just wanted to spend more time with her, and you made it happen, huh?
I just asked her, and she was like, I've never done that before, but sure. So, yeah.
Yeah, so you stepped out of your comfort zone, and she said yes, and it was a little uncomfortable for both of you, I guess, but...
Yeah, but I learned a lot, and I loved it.
Yeah, totally, don't have to shoot for the moon and go for someone famous. Find somebody. If you like what they're doing and you want to be kind of like them, hang out with them.
Right, and recognize that just because we have this kind of pre-programming as a Western civilization to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps and, to stand out and to fit in at the same time, that's not where we have to stay. We know we are designed to live in connection.
Yeah.
That's part of what being in God's image is. If you look back at Genesis, it talks about how God created us to be in relationship. So we need relationships. We know that.
Yeah.
And we know that connection is part of how we grow. So we can't just stay in the not connection. You have to take some kind of step.
That's right. Yeah. Our kids were talking about, I forget what the hypothetical was, but, I think I said something like everything has risks, and Jane was trying to figure out something that wouldn't be risky at all. And her solution was floating around in space. Like, you're not going to bump into anything, or you're not going to get run over by a train or hit by a car because you're out in space. You're safe, right? And I was like, well, then you're so alone, your soul's going to be crushed.
And oxygen.
Well, I think it was given that maybe you'd have a suit or something, but it's like, we got to be connected.
Exactly.
And nothing's safe, so try some stuff.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us here today. We really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody that's been sharing the show. And as always, if you guys like this show, please pass it along to 2 or 3 people. The more people that are living in the slipstream, the better off we'll all be.
Yeah, that's our goal and our prayer, is that this show will
help people move to freedom and abundance and peace.
That's right.
All right, we love you guys, and we are praying for you. Hopefully you guys can, 1% improvement. You don't have to change anything, but think of some way you can be a little more connected this week. Reach out to somebody.
Yeah, that's our challenge. Let us know how it went.
Yes, we'd love to hear it. All right, we'll talk to you guys later.